That is like the most. I'm gonna start calling that the death pause, because there's like the song ends, and then everybody here watching the show, there's this dead silence, just sort of waiting for something to happen. I kind of feel like it's that pause in a game show, like, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? Or like, is that your final answer?
Right.
Like there's that dead silence. Hey everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of the Johnless Wednesday Night Live Show. For now, Shelly and I are holding out hope that he finally wakes up and realizes that there's a show going on. So if everyone will remember, John works nights. So the best I can gather, Shelly, is he works for a company monitoring security cameras. That's basically what he does. He sits behind a desk and he watches camera video to make sure people are up to no good. Now, do I know for what business or what occupation or federal agency he's actually monitoring these video cameras for? I have no freaking idea what he's doing it for. All I know is he does it, and he apparently works with a bunch of kids. When I say kids, we can say that when you're 50 plus years old, you're allowed to now call everybody younger than you sub 50 a child, a kid, right? So if you're like 49, you're still a kid. Once you hit 50, then you can speak.
And if you're 49, enjoy it, because
right. Exactly, because once you hit 50, you either become a cougar or a rhino. So whatever that's worth. Apparently the guys become rhinos, the women become cougars. I don't know if that's behavioral, proven behaviorally, but either way, we get kind of boxed into being a cougar or a rhino. And then therefore, it's only fair that we get to in turn then look down upon anybody below 50 years old and call you a kid. So he works with a bunch of 19, 20, and 21-year-olds, I think. That's what I'm gathering, who are still trying to breach the responsibility of having a job in their lives. And they still kind of, I think, if I had to throw something at the wall and see if it would stick, it would be they're working for that paycheck so that they can have enough money to go out on the weekend, buy a bag of weed, and put gas in their car. That's pretty much. There's not a lot of bills going on 18, 19, and 20 years old. Maybe mom and dad are trying to instill some good values and responsibility, but I think we live in a society now where we're in that generation where the parents are like, I'm going to work really hard so my kids don't have to. And while that is admirable, I fear for the future generations. I don't know. Maybe everything pulls full circle. So anyway, I'm trying not to ramble too much. But at any rate, so John works with these kids. He works a lot of extra hours. He does a lot of favors. And so when he comes home from work, he's tired, rightly so, working at night. And then he, quote unquote, sets his 3 alarms so he won't sleep through his alarms, so he can make sure that he's up and ready for the show. And everyone here who has followed the show, been on the show, been part of the show, this has happened before.
Yep.
So Shelly and I can attest that we both have his phone number, and we blew it up to the point where I think now the voicemail attendant is sick and tired of us. So we're just gonna. Here she goes again. And we debated giving the phone number out publicly, but we decided against that because we love John and we don't want him to hate us. So
right.
So we're hoping and praying that at some point we decided to hold out here roll forward with the show and see if he doesn't poke his head out from underneath his pillow and show up and grace us with his presence. So everyone cross your fingers, knock on wood, say a few Hail Marys, whatever you got to do. Maybe he'll show up and we'll have a more inclusive show. Phillip couldn't make it tonight. He had family situations going on. Allison is quite busy with all of her stuff going on, and she's raising a puppy. So we know how that goes. Cleaning pee up out of the carpet quite a bit.
Yuck.
So let's start with the formalities. Shelly, how has your week been?
It's been a thing. It's been a real thing. Had a good friend of mine is in the hospital. She's not doing too good.
Very sorry.
But, yeah. But I think they'll get her going. And got a new Chromebook. I'm still trying to work things out on it, and had all kinds of things going on. But yeah, it's been pretty good though. It's been nice and warm, and it's been beautiful. It's been beautiful.
That's good. And you survived the snow.
Yes. All 4 inches of it.
All 4, yeah, which is rare for you to even begin with, right?
Yeah.
You ran away to Florida to escape all that bullshit. Right?
Exactly. I mean, we gave away all kinds of, a semi full of stuff to get here, just gave it away, literally, and along with that was, of course, the scrapers and the shovels and the lawnmowers and all that stuff. Cause now everybody does that outside stuff for me, but not when it comes to here. The state of Florida only has 8, tractors is what it comes down to.
The entire state.
The entire state has 8. And if it's not in your area and you're getting snow, you're not getting those tractors. So we get, and I've lived in a lot of country towns, lot of country towns, and you might know what I'm talking about, where you look out your window, your front window, and you see a guy sitting on the back of a pickup truck with a shovel, and he's just kind of doing this with the salt or sand or whatever they've got, it just out past his knees on the ground. We have done that before. So, but we didn't even get that here. We have one bridge, and the bridge is major. It gets a lot of people from one side of a bay to another side of the bay and back and forth. But they did that, and that was it. But then they ended up closing it because it was a spreader, like one of those handheld spreaders.
Yeah.
And you walk behind. Yeah. Well, it was hooked up to the wheels, but that's all they had. Yeah. So it didn't go any further, than 8 feet or 6 feet or whatever it was. It wasn't enough. So, yeah, the whole city just shut down for 3 days. We didn't have anything that was open.
Well, I guess call it a nice break from the grind of regular life. Everybody got to enjoy a little bit of something that up here we mostly complain about. I can tell you everybody in Atlanta pretty much has an absolute, well, I can't say it. My wife is still kind of going through the motions of enjoying the whole idea of snow. She's from Brazil, so they don't have snow in Brazil. There's just no such thing. As a matter of fact, right now they're going through one of the worst heat waves they've ever experienced in the history of Brazil. So the fact that she's embraced it for now, I will not wish for like the 8 inches and having to go out and shovel off the car and do all that. So I think if I subject her to that type of an experience, I think she's going to quickly rethink her love for her love of snow. But that said, here pretty much it's broad-based throughout all of Atlanta. Like people just here want nothing to do with snow. They don't care for it. They don't they don't even lightly wish for it. The kids, of course, they want it because
they get a day off of school.
Yeah, but here like 5 raindrops could fall out of the sky and they pretty much get the day off.
Oh, really?
So, is it? It's so here we're similar to Florida in the sense that we're just not a state that is prepared for the removal elements of it. Right. So if it were to fall in a way that could get you trapped, it can mean curtains for a lot of people here in Georgia because you just there's no rescue. So
yeah, there's so many trees and things there.
Exactly. It'd be the exact same thing. So we did get our little dusting when we weren't here, and I went to visit my parents, but I think I told that story. We still got about 3 inches in Northern Virginia. So and then we got a little bit of a flurry thing that happened right after I got back from Mississippi. So anyway, we've gotten our fill for the year. I'm hoping that's the end of it. We've had some up and down weather. Last week I was sick. Kind of combating the up and down temperatures that kind of affect people from time to time. But other than that, my life has been pretty straight and narrow. I haven't had too many crazy, exciting things happen.
What?
I don't have a whole lot of I don't have a whole lot of HOA stuff to talk about.
Don't get me started.
Yeah, we're in a lull right now. We're in those winter months, so it's just pretty much business as usual.
Yeah.
But so for, I guess, the only story that I could share that was interesting in the last week was that, obviously we had the Super Bowl this past weekend. I really honestly didn't care which team won. I actually kind of hoped both teams could lose, but we know that's not a reality. So I took the stance where I was going to begrudgingly root for the Kansas City Chiefs, just because I wanted vengeance on the Eagles because they're in our division, and the Commanders had the shot. They got the NFC Championship game. They didn't pull it off. I don't think it was their time, rightly so. I think it would have been too much of a fluke if they had made it all the way to the Super Bowl this particular year. But anyway, so after speaking on it with my wife, we decided, we came to the agreement that we would go somewhere and watch the game out in the public sphere. Like she did. We had invites to go to parties and stuff or hang out with friends watching the game at their house. But she's like, I've never watched the Super Bowl before. I want to go somewhere where, there'll be that raw emotion and just people in general. So we took off to Taco Mac, which is it's not a, I don't know why they call it Taco Mac. It's not a Mexican place, but at any rate, it's called Taco Mac, which is, they're sprinkled around there, but their big claim to fame is the beer choices. They have 100 different beers on tap, several more in the coolers. So, and my wife is a big beer aficionado. She likes stouts, ales, IPAs, blondes, reds. Like she likes the whole plethora of beer.
Good for her. I like her.
she knows what she's talking about. I just kind of find something that I think I can consume and I'd stick with it. Anyway, so we went there, sat down to watch the game, enjoyed some food and whatever. We all know the outcome of the game, so I don't need to comment on any of that. But I did feel like I needed to keep myself a little reserved in the sense that, it was obvious very quickly based on the trajectory of the game, the way it was turning out, that the bar was mostly Philadelphia fans. Which is ironic in the sense that I live in Georgia. So, why so many Philly fans in Georgia, have no clue. But at any rate, I didn't do a lot of this. I mean, you couldn't really do a lot of that for the Chiefs anyway. Yeah. You know what I mean? You were just kind of like hanging on to a play here or a play there. But it was like trying to be a Commanders fan or a Redskins fan and like taking a trip to Dallas, Texas. That's what it felt like. It's like,
what I do though?
Don't go there.
Whenever there's two teams and I really don't care which one, and I prefer, like you, for both of them to lose, I always root for the underdog. Whichever one isn't going to win or is being told they can't win or that hasn't won in a long time, because I remember being the Saints, and when we finally won, it was our day, boy. I mean, It was awesome.
Yep.
So, and anybody who can get that feeling, I root for them,
Exactly. Well, yeah, I had no skin in the game on this one. It was just personal choice. So we finished the game. The game was obviously at blowout level. So we decided to leave at some point in the fourth quarter, finished our drinks, got our tab, and we had this couple sitting next to us the whole entire game. And it was highly ironic. I'm making a very short story very long, but it was kind of highly ironic because it was obvious that the woman that he was with didn't know anything about football. Not one thing.
Yeah.
Like she didn't at that point, she didn't even understand that that it takes, you get 4 chances to get 10 yards. That we were at that level. Like she was just basically, I think all she ever knew was they're good looking. They look good in tight pants, and and Travis Kelce's dating Taylor Swift. Yeah, right. That's probably all she really knew. So I thought it kind of cute. He was kind of explaining the rules of the game the best he could, and so didn't think much of it. They sat next to us the whole entire time, drinking, eating, doing whatever. And then he stood up next to me. I caught him in my peripheral. He stood up next to me, and I saw him motion to the bartender like, "Hey, can we get the check?" And so she's like, yeah. So she walks off, and then strangely enough, the same waitress that he asked for the check was not the one that brought the check back. So this woman came, the way other bartender came back, and it appeared to me handed the check to the female and not the guy. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure. Maybe it was in between them. And the next thing you know, all you saw was water go flying across the whole entire bar top. A beer can or a Red Bull can of some kind was smashed and flew across. And we didn't even really understand what was going on. And I just looked at the bartenders, and they kind of took a step back. And the one bartender said, and then before you know it, this woman is storming out of the bar. She's banging on windows, making all kinds of ruckus. She was obviously irate. The guy's standing there sort of like by himself with his wad of money, like paying for the tab. And so we didn't even really understand what had gone on. It was just like they just had an argument, just like completely out of the blue. So with that said, I don't know what happened. I don't know what set her off. I'm not really sure exactly what was going on. They were kissing and having fun the whole entire night. There didn't seem to be any issues. So I have no answers for everybody. I don't have any tea. I have no story to truly tell you, other than I think that was the most exciting thing that happened all afternoon.
Well, that was a good bullshit story.
Exactly. It was a great bullshit story. Right? So anyway, I'll digress at that point. Anyway, that was the most exciting thing that happened for the Super Bowl. But with that said, let's move forward and say hello to some good people here. So, hey, everybody, welcome to this week's edition of the Wednesday night Hope John Shows Up show. Let's see who we got in the chat. We got, excuse me, clear my throat. We got the wonderful Mallory, do it your damn self. Gates, how are you doing, Mallory? Great to see you here on the show. Always great to see you here. Hunter Shaw, great to see you. Welcome to the show, Hunter. How are you? Who else we got in here? We got Steve, Emoji King Tottenham in the house. Good to see you, Steve. How are you? And we got Jeffrey, I don't own a bear, Zamora in the house. Good to see you, Jeffrey. How are you? Yes, I'm sorry, Jeffrey. We were a little late. I tried to explain the situation the best that I could. We got the resident pirate in the house. We got James R in the house. Good to see you, James. How are you? Wonderful to see you, sir. Who else we got in here? We got Peggy with Peggy with no moniker because she already has @eSig in the middle of her name. Source. Good to see you, Peggy. How are you? Wonderful to see you. We got Don Shirako Ayako, but now he's Don Flashlight Ayako. I hope you bought a flashlight, Don. I hope finally Olight got to your pocketbook. But maybe they have, maybe they haven't. Anyway, I talked my brother into buying one of those little mini flashlights, so I feel quite proud of myself. I don't lobby. I'm not a lobbyist for Olight or anything. I just thought it was a cool little flashlight, so I like to share cool little things, and I did, and my brother bought one. My brother worked for a contractor for years, and now he manages two. He's not a superintendent, but I guess you could call him that. He kind of oversees a couple apartment complexes, and so that thing comes in real handy for him. All right, kids. So here we are. We're still without John. I'm not really sure exactly what he had lined up, but I did pull a couple things. Shelly and I decided we would start off with the first thing which is this lawsuit filed against the state of Montana. I'm still a little vague on the exact parameters of this particular lawsuit, but we did find the facts and arguments within the pages of the argument. And this looks promising. Apparently, I guess after doing some digging and looking around the MSA, the Master Settlement Agreement, Mr. Marshall was able to sort of find some language in there that lends some credence to the fact that the big tobacco companies and their lobbying practices were in breach of the MSA agreement. And therefore, if this judge rules in such a way that there could be a cease and desist request or cease and desist judgment against the big tobacco companies for lobbying in breach of the MSA, which could open some doors to maybe push some additional lawsuits elsewhere around the country. Again, Shelley and I are not lawyers. So I thought what I would do is, and if anybody here in the comments has some insight as to what might really the impact might be here, or what this truly might mean, I think what we'll facilitate with is at least reading the facts and the arguments of the lawsuit. This seemed to be something that's pretty positive. We'll take wins where we can get them. So I apologize if anything strange shows up on my screen, because this is coming straight from Facebook. I don't think anything weird is going to show up, but I'm not going to make any promises. Hold on 1 second. It always seems like messages and things pop up when you do this sort of stuff. All right. So I went through roughly about 8 to 10 pages of this, most of which at the front end of this document was a lot of lawyer speak. And then if you've ever had to work with a lawyer and read those kinds of documents, they kind of use a lot of Shakespearean language that I think kind of throws us off a little bit. So I thought we would just read through this as a group. Anybody who's not sure what's going on will get filled in. Anybody who knows what's going on or understands what's happening, maybe this will bring more light to exactly what's at stake here. So facts. We love facts.
I love facts.
Right. What is it? Facts don't care about your feelings. Is that what this is? That's what they say. Whoever they are, this mysterious group of people who say things that we apparently attach ourselves to. Spoken again in bold. Facts. In 1998, the state of Montana entered into a contractual agreement with certain cigarette manufacturers, which inter alta limited those entities' ability to lobby for or against certain laws in the state of Montana. Then they tell you to go see the 1998 Master Settlement Agreement. A more thorough description of background facts are set forth in the verified petition for declaratory judgment and preliminary and permanent injunctive relief, Document 1. There's all kinds of references here, so you kind of have to stab around and try to find most of this stuff, which are thusly incorporated herein. The respondents are those same cigarette manufacturers or their affiliated entities, and therefore bound by the MSA. So it limits those tobacco companies. It limits their ability to lobby for or against certain laws in the state of Montana. During the 2025 legislative session, respondents have actively and purposely lobbied the Montana legislature in direct violation of the MSA. Specifically, respondents and their respective officers and employees who engage in lobbying activities in Montana were required to make the certifications pursuant to MSA Section 3 and failed to do so. Now, maybe we can find that section and maybe we can enlighten ourselves. This failure constitutes a breach of the MSA, and such breach has resulted in an injury to the citizens of the state of Montana.
Right.
Also, during the 2025 legislative session, petitioner introduced House Bill 149, hereinafter HB 149, which, in relevant part, addresses youth smoking youth access to cigarettes and vaping, and is therefore subject to the anti-lobbying provisions set forth in MSA Section 3 and Exhibit F, which maybe that's listed somewhere. I do believe there's a section on Exhibit F. Despite the existence of the anti-lobbying provision, respondents acting through lobbyists Mark Baker hereinafter. This is what I mean by the Shakespearean language.
Yeah.
They like theretofore, hereinafter. It just kind of cracks me up because like I feel like it's language of like 800 years ago, and only lawyers use these words. Like
Right.
I can't remember writing like a 4th grade book report and using the word hereinafter.
No.
Nope. And Edward J. Redding, hereinafter Redding, have lobbied members of the Montana legislature in opposition to HB 149. So that seems to be the meat of the argument. They've breached the MSA agreement by lobbying in opposition to House Bill 149. Now, maybe we can. Now, Shelley, maybe you know this much. Is HB 149 in reference to the registry bills?
I think it is, but again, I'm not sure. I tried to find out for sure, and I wasn't ever able to verify. Yes, I believe it is, but I don't know.
I'm trying to find this bill passed. It was a partisan bill introduced on January 9th. What's the crux of the bill? Can we just see the text? The text. Why can't they just make it simple?
No, they don't. I'm gonna get up for a second. I gotta get a fan on.
Yeah, go for it. That one had something to do with firearms. If anybody knows what HB 149 directly spoke to, I'm sure CASA probably has it on their website, right?
I would think.
Sorry if I'm digging around, folks. I just want to make sure you're informed. If you're not sure, microwave. Good to see you, microwave oven, Mike. I can tell you in a second. I gotta get back.
You're breaking up.
I'm breaking up.
Yes, I don't know if it's to everybody, but you were to me.
Okay, hold on. Let me go back to the beginning there, Jeffrey. I'll get the answer for you. We'll go back forward again. Better. Here it is right here. Let's see if I can make it bigger for everybody. The petitioner is Ron Marshall.
Right. I missed that. Sorry. I didn't hear y'all asking.
Yes. Okay. You're welcome. All right. Now let's go forward again back to where we were. Sorry. Everything is like magnified. Let me go back to the facts page. Facts. Here we are. We're back here again. Okay. So let me go on CASA's website really quick, and let's see if I can't do a search on CASA and see if we can't get, I believe this will be a registry bill. I believe that's what this will be. Getting involved. Get involved. All right, let me go down here. Let me look at nationally. All right. They used to have a whole bunch of them. I'm trying to look up Montana HB 149. It seems to address 2025 legislative session. General revised alternative nicotine and vapor products laws. All right, here, hold on, kids. I got it for you. The proposed bill seeks to revise the regulation of alternative nicotine and vapor products by establishing them as distinct from traditional tobacco products. It introduces new definitions for alternative nicotine product and vapor product, clarifying that these do not fall under the same category as tobacco products or those regulated as drugs by the FDA. The bill mandates that vapor products can only be sold in age-restricted locations and prohibits sales to individual users under 18 years of age. Retailers are required to obtain a $20 license from the Department of Revenue, and the bill outlines civil penalties for noncompliance, including fines and potential license suspension for repeated violations. Key amendments include the removal of previous references to alternative nicotine products in certain contexts, simplifying the language and focusing on tobacco products. The bill emphasizes the need for signage to inform customers of age restrictions and specifies that vending machines selling these products must be supervised and located in establishments where alcohol is sold. Local governments are allowed to adopt regulations that align with the bill's provisions, ensuring a consistent approach to the scale and distribution of these products across Montana. Overall, the bill aims to streamline tobacco regulation while enforcing age restrictions and compliance measures. So the proposed bill seeks to revise the regulation of alternative nicotine and vapor products by establishing them as distinct from traditional tobacco products.
Okay.
It introduces new definitions for alternative. I wish we could get more meat on the bones for that. But let's go back. So apparently the big tobacco lobbyists were lobbying in opposition to this bill. The way I'm reading HB 149, it almost sounds like they want to redefine alternative and vapor products to make them distinct from tobacco products. And I think that would make sense as to why the big tobacco lobbyists would want to oppose that, because they want vapor products and alternative nicotine products to be lumped in with their tobacco products.
Correct.
So that cigarettes can still remain competitive on the market. So
Right.
they have an incentive to want this not to happen. Whereas this bill alone, if in fact my assumptions are correct here, it would be good in the sense that we have always long fought and stated that we're not big tobacco. We're not part of big tobacco. Our products are not tobacco products, other than the content of nicotine, which comes from the tobacco plant, but can also be synthetically manufactured. So therefore, it's not the same. You can't make it the same.
There's no burning. There's no tobacco leaf. There's no stems. There's no nothing. It's just the nicotine extracted from the plant, which we could do the same in reality. Or, if we could extract it enough from tomatoes, we could use that instead of nicotine plants.
Sure. Yeah. I mean,
if we could do it,
if you could do it, I don't know to what volume you would have you would need production of eggplants and tomatoes and other indigenous plant life to be able to extract nicotine from it, nightshade plants and all that good stuff that they like to talk about. But that said, that sounds like there's the motivation that during this legislative session, these two individuals, hereinafter referred to as Baker and Redding, they tried to push legislators to vote in opposition of HB 149. Baker and Redding, on behalf of the respondents, have also lobbied members of the Montana House of Representatives and Senate to approve a draft of LC 1706, which would prohibit the sale of vaping products in Montana which lack a grant of marketing authorization from the United States Food and Drug Administration. In essence, the passage of LC 1706 would limit the existence of vaping products on the market, create a market monopoly for the respondents, and increase the youth usage of cigarettes also sold by respondents in Montana. This is also in violation of the MSA. So
they're pushing cigarettes on kids. What it boils down to.
Exactly.
What it boils down to.
Right. So this makes a lot of sense. It does seem like there's a valid argument at hand, which I thought that maybe I could comment a little bit or read a little bit on the actual argument so we could understand. What's up, Squidly? Good to see you on the show. How are you? Good to see you. Thanks for joining the show. Love the usernames here, Squidly. Like love the names. I think mine's starting to get kind of boring. I need to come up with hair full of metal. That's the best I could come up with.
I like that. I like
15 years ago. I'm like, what? I can't. I used to be good at naming World of Warcraft characters, and then I'm like, I can't. Then I draw blank. I just hit writer's block when it comes to something outside of World of Warcraft. Anyway, so the argument in and of itself. Well, I wonder. Let's pull up Squidly's comment. Been building for 10 years and always keep extra supplies and juices. Glad I never got into the pod craze.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah. I mean, I've got, you know what? I think a lot of us kind of did the same thing. I'm not a DIYer, Squidly, so I really don't have that expertise. That's more the Mallory Gateses of the world, and a bunch of other people I know. I kind of did the same thing. Like when this stuff started kind of popping up, I started like buying up a ton of stuff, and I had like I have a closet full of e-liquid right now. I'm terrified it's even worth any value at this point, just because hopefully I've kept it in a dark, cool place and the nicotine hasn't peppered too much. But should the shit hit the fan, I'll be good for a good long while. I unfortunately didn't necessarily get into the pod craze, but I did find pods rather convenient. And I say that
a lot of people do. A lot of people do, though.
I say that just because, when you're out and about and moving around and going here, going there, going to festivals or your friends' houses or parties or whatever it is, concerts, this, that, and the other thing, I found pods and the AIOs to become sort of like a bailout for situations like that. And then oh, really? That's awesome. Well, tell your dad, friggin', that's amazing. That he said that his username on YouTube comes from a WoW character that his dad created. That's friggin' awesome.
Cool.
Got kinship on the show. At any rate, I bought into the pods and the AIOs because they were portable, smaller. You had the open system element to it. I didn't go buy a bunch of closed pod system stuff. I wasn't really into that. So I did do that, but I kind of burn out on those after a while. And I went back to my regular, standard open system mods and RDAs, RDTAs, all that fun stuff. I went back to all of that, but now I'm sorry, I hit a lull. I hit another low point in my vaping career or vaping lifestyle, where I did kind of get into the disposable market.
But that's okay, though. I mean, if it's keeping you off of cigarettes, who should care? I mean, seriously, I just don't get the whole why does anybody care? As long as you are happy and you're not smoking cigarettes and your doctor is okay with your condition of your body.
Yep.
Who has the right to tell you no on that?
Well, right. And I think that's really sort of something that the vaping community, we kind of have a privilege, right? Because, we have the choice to pick what it is that we want at any given time to decide what it is works for us to help keep us off of cigarettes and the like. So I've not abandoned that. I've just sort of gotten to a little bit of a lazy period. I spent a lot of time working. And I appreciate absolutely John, all of us here appreciate the old schoolers, because we say that a lot with regard to our advocacy, and we talk to a lot of vape shop owners. We talk to a lot of people, because a lot of the culture that exists on this show, meaning the rebuildables, making your own coils, doing all the stuff that was very manual and that were part of the journey for us, like sort of the transgressions that we went through, right? Because the early on devices, looking back, they were great then because that's what we had. But then we got, the innovation took hold and new things came on the market. people became more diverse. And one thing that really kind of settled in was rebuildables. That really was kind of where we all really kind of started and progressed through, because we didn't have the closed systems and the throwaway coils and the all the the tanks existed, like the Kangers and all that stuff was there, but we all moved into the rebuildable thing. And to me, this is my own personal opinion, my own 2 cents, was that, if the shit is going to hit the fan, truly, if the shit is going to hit the fan, meaning we're going to lose vaping across the board. Moreover, is that the people that would be able to kind of subvert the process maybe a little bit, or survive for a more consistent amount of time, were going to be the people that were into rebuildables, because you can buy a shitload of wire and make coils all damn day long. You can buy shitloads of cotton and you have a wicking material all damn day long. Your devices are cleanable and reusable. And really what it boils down to at that point is access to e-liquid. Battery. What's that?
It's pennies then, instead of, dollars for a big old bottle,
Well, exactly, but on that note, if things were to get shut down, like you could still get 18650 batteries, you could still get 2100 battery, the bigger batteries and stuff like you could still get all of the stuff that you would need to sustain, and therefore going beyond that point, then the DIYers probably would have a lot more long distance survivability than people who don't know how to DIY. But I think if that was the last remaining element of your vaping necessity was to switch to DIY, that would probably be enough. Like you would be able to get over the line and turn to your DIY friends and go, hey, how do I get started? What do I have to do? Where do I go? And then, we sort of saw, them attack nicotine and try to find ways to shut supply lines down and things like that. Those are the things that really kind of create the detriment to it all in the end. But Squidly, John and I talk about it all the time. You can't go in vape shops anymore, and there's really nothing in there for builders. There's not much in there. Like, you don't see mech mods hanging around, and you don't see like all the other variants that that were so plentiful for such a long period of time, because that was the nature of the hobby. Right. But then, just like everything else, in comes the user-friendly side of stuff. And and for the manufacturers of those devices, it opens up a plethora of new customers to you, because someone who doesn't know shit about vaping and is going to walk into a store, with the PACT Act and all the other legislation that was passed that limited what vape shops could do for customers. Someone who wants to quit cigarettes is needing an off ramp for that. Imagine how overwhelming that would be for one of them to walk into a shop and the only thing available to them was rebuildable stuff.
Right.
Like, okay, yeah, they wouldn't know what to do. And you can't install the coils for them. You can't take their device and go in the back and hook them up and then come back and then try to coach them along. You got older people who would not even want to bother with any of that stuff. Like, I have parents that don't even want to, mess with 1/32 of a computer. This might as well be the VHS of the 2000s for my parents. It just wouldn't work. So the user-friendly market serves its purpose. But going back to the original point, I share the same sentiment that, whatever it is that you choose, that makes you happy, that works for you, that suits you, that helps you stay off of cigarettes and offers you the most variety to satisfy, the cravings for that addiction. I fully support that. So
dependence. It's not addiction. It's dependence. It's one of my pet peeves.
Right.
Addicting. That addiction word just bothers the hell out of me. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but it always looms. I'd like to think
know.
we're kind of off track. We're getting off the article here, but
Yeah.
these conversations are good to have because we all
Yes.
share the same feelings and emotions on this kind of stuff, and I think this is a side of the vaping community that the average person out in the world doesn't understand. They
Correct.
can't relate. They either were never a smoker, so why would they vape in the first place? And and if they were a smoker, they've had their mind tainted by the media and the people that push bullshit out there to make people think that vaping is worse than smoking. And or if you do vape, there's all these byproducts of vaping. Your hair is going to fall out, your mouth is full
Yeah.
of slime, you all these, or you're going to suffer heart attacks, your lungs are going to collapse, you're going to get popcorn lung. It's the fear mongering that goes on, all
Impudence.
in
Don't forget that one.
impotence and erectile dysfunction are on the way.
Right.
So I'm fearful of the furthering of my what's the word I'm looking for? Uh,
I'm not going there for you,
it,
too.
it, it, it's it, it I'll remember the word here in a minute. It's irrelevant, but I'm just saying. But thinner eyes, true. Like, yeah, everything's gonna go wrong, Peggy. We're doomed if we're vapors. Kids are gonna underdevelop. There's snakes in their brains.
Yeah.
All the fear mongering that goes on. So, but people don't understand, and nor do, in my opinion, nor do the people who have the power to regulate vaping or impose serious sanctions on vaping. They don't understand the
No.
variables that are involved in it, and that really for all of us, it was something that we found helped us quit smoking. And with that said, we're not all built the same.
No.
Somebody wants MTL, somebody needs DTL, somebody needs 24 milligrams, somebody only needs 3 milligram. Somebody just transitioning needs higher nicotine content to start the process and
Right.
then work their way down. So we get it, but they don't get it. So I just think these conversations are important because we all understand each other. So
Just earlier today, I had someone tell me that he knew that he had some issues with probably ADHD, but he was never told by a doctor, which so many people at 50 doesn't, and or don't know for sure. They've never checked into it. They've been able to handle it, but he said, I just don't get why anyone would ever smoke or vape or anything like that. He said, why not just turn to liquor? I did. And I thought, no, I said, that's even worse, And he said, well, I know it's worse, but it helps my head. So I don't have a problem with that, I mean, is what he was saying. I don't have a problem with liquor, but oh, Lord forbid, don't give me a cigarette or a vape, because
right.
that's even worse. And then he started thinking about it after I talked to him, and he goes, well, it's probably not as any better. And I said, no, it's not. I said, it's not any better at all.
Right.
So your way doesn't always work for everybody.
Exactly. And I wish that that colorful element of vaping could be better verbalized to these people, that they wouldn't take this myopic view of vaping as it's all 50 milligram, it's all jewel high content stuff, and it's just it's full of metals. Like, I wish people could understand that this is a thoughtful community, this is an educated community. We're self-reliant, we turn to each other for information and education, and we do our research and we go and find the information. I don't think that we're the type of crowd that necessarily drones in on wanting to find something that implicitly just feeds our narrative, because we know we're not doing anything bad, right? So that's not the 10 toes down that we stand on. The fact of the matter is that we've all seen improvements in our health,
Exactly.
in our life. We know that that getting off of cigarettes and that the combustible elements of that have gotten us away from the damaging cancerous chemicals that exist. And ultimately, it gives us a way to exist for our loved ones, as opposed to putting them in a position to have to stand by our bedside as we go through infinite rounds of chemotherapy, right? So there are a lot of success stories, and too many times and too far often, those stories, those success stories are discounted as anecdotal and not worth a shit, just because we need to listen to the experts who are more than likely lobbied by the same people that were sort of addressing, here they have, Bloomberg and all these people that don't want to see vaping succeed because it's a threat to either them directly, their constituents, their lobby army, or in most cases two big parties, two primary parties, and that's big pharma and big tobacco. I've said it a million times. The meme that sticks with me is a patient cured is a customer lost. And I think that it rings very true in that sense. So, you know, I'm hoping that this can start a bit of a waterfall of activity in the legal department, to be able to, fight. I think Dina brought it up in her Facebook post alone, was that, a lot of people lost their livelihoods due to these registry bills that were signed into law and caused them to go out of business. A lot of good people, we've seen several over the period of doing the show, have had to shut their businesses down because they just can't sustain. They don't want to become the crossover tobacco vape CBD shop, and look, whatever people want to engage in, whatever behavior somebody wants to jump into, that that's their personal adult choice to do whatever it is they want to do. I'm not going to criticize, but I think that there are a lot of good people who built vape businesses out of the simply on the foundation that they found vaping as a way to get away from smoking. They realized how monumental their success story was and what this could do for millions of other people, and they started vape shops to help other people find the same epiphany that they did. And they're not going to cave to big tobacco, and they're not going to cave to sustainability measures that make them feel like they're doing it for the wrong reason. The ultimate goal, that target, that site has been lost. They're not going to muddy the water in that. So, with that said, I hope that there's a waterfall of activity with regard to this breach. Exactly, James, the lived experience. I mean, we're the best ones to speak to if you want information or facts to back up what's really going on. Unfortunately, I just don't think we live in a world anymore where the vast majority of people take the time to critically think about things. They just want they want the circular peg to fit the circular hole. So they'll take any square peg they can find to go, hey, that it doesn't really look like a square. Looks more like a circle to me. It fits, or twist the narrative, or twist that information and data to kind of go, see, I told you, this is exactly what we've been trying to tell you. And Peggy, I think that's the same thing for a lot of people. They were accidental quitters.
Right.
I hear that all the time. Weren't even trying, just sort of like, hey, what is this thing? Tried it out, and I think for me, I won't stand on that same. I don't feel like I can stand on the same soapbox. I don't feel like I didn't walk into a gas station and look behind the counter and be like, what's this gimmicky looking thing hanging here in this case? Let me see what it's all about, just so I could see what it tastes like or something. It wasn't that. Actually, mine started because a guy at the office who sat across the hall from me, he was a smoker, and he invested in an e-cig like kit to get off of smoking, and he was really excited when it showed up that day. I remember he's like, "Yeah, my e-cig showed up," and I'm like, "E-cig? What the hell is an e-cig?" And so he's like, "Yeah, let me show you." And he but it was a blue kit. He bought the blue kit. It was the little black box that had the 2 batteries, and then I think space for like 6 carts or 8 carts or maybe something like that.
Wow.
And it was cool. I was like, "Oh, that's cool." It charges in the case, and what do you do? And so I'm like, hey, I've been smoking now for well over 20 years. I mean, maybe I should look into something like that. My HOA has an office. Yeah, the office is right here in my own home. We don't actually have like I don't get to go down the street and unlock and go into the HOA space. I don't have I don't take appointments. I don't take HOA appointments. No, yeah, the funny in it, Steve. I get it. They no, I haven't been an HOA member my whole entire adult life. I was working for a global electronics distributor. They ship high-end telephony, networking, and securities equipment like Cisco, Avaya, Nortel. I know a lot of those companies have changed names over the years. And I was helping to co-manage the warehouse in Northern Virginia, and the guy across the hall. So anyway, I'm like, yeah, maybe I should look into this. Maybe it's probably a good time to think about quitting. I'm like, this can't, I get my family constantly telling me or wishing that I would quit.
Right.
People in your, you constantly having to hear like, smoking's bad for you, blah, 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 all that stuff. Looking at the amount of money that I was spending on a consistent basis,
and every year it went up. Every year.
Absolutely. So yeah, I was willing to dive in and take a chance. So I don't qualify myself as an accidental quitter. I was educated by someone on exactly what it is that I was seeing, and I'm like, hey, well, if you're willing to try it, maybe it's worth it for me to try. And that's how the journey started. I mean, that's where it kind of got kicked off for me. But at any rate, I hope that we get to return to some of our former glory. But that doesn't mean that we can't still be doing that stuff, even if we're not vape shop owners. I try to talk to people all the time. And anytime people are like, I want to quit smoking. And I'm like, have you tried vaping? Yeah. Oh, I read about that. That's supposed to be as bad or worse. I'm like,
yeah.
Well, here, let me talk to you for a minute. All right. So let's talk about the argument now that we're done with that tangent. This court should preliminarily enjoin the respondents from continuing their lobbying efforts which violate the MSA. Temporary restraining orders and preliminary injunctions are impermanent remedies designed to preserve the status quo to minimize the harm to all parties pending full trial. So they state some case law here. Don't need to really get into all that because I have no idea what these arguments were about. So I'll have to believe that these substantiate the argument in general terms. A preliminary injunction does not determine the merits of the case, but rather prevents further injury or irreparable harm by preserving the status quo of the subject. Hold on, let me kill that. Trying to share everybody's comments here. I'm pulling double duty. Normally I get to do some of that while John's talking. So I'm trying to read, talk, all that at the same time. Good thing I'm not chewing gum. I'd probably explode. A preliminary injunction does not determine the merits of the case, but rather prevents further injury or irreparable harm by preserving the status quo of the subject in the controversy pending an adjudication of the merits. And then he states more case law. A temporary restraining order may be granted without written or I think these are just statements of like validating why a preliminary injunction would make sense at this time. Doesn't really necessarily address the issue at hand. It just justifies the reasoning behind the preliminary injunction. I think this is probably all like they probably put this in everything anytime they want a preliminary injunction. They quote these cases. The issues presented in the verified petition and infra evidence a quintessential case warranting injunctive relief, the respondents have directly and openly violated the MSA. It is likely that the petition will succeed on the merits. At a minimum, however, the petitioner's claims raise serious questions on the merits. Without a grant of injunctive relief, the petitioner and the citizens of the state of Montana will face serious injuries for which there is no likely compensation. Increased youth smoking, disruption of Montana-owned businesses, and possibly the creation of laws which become effective before this court can issue a permanent injunction. By contrast, the respondents will suffer no harm from the issuance of a preliminary injunction which requires them to comply with the MSA, which you should have been doing in the first place, Baker and Redding. An agreement which they already entered into. All applicable legal factors mitigate in favor of granting a temporary restraining order and preliminary injunction. So, if we consider the general statement, let me close all that stuff. Why did I just have to scroll through the same thing twice? So here, this was where we all started to learn about this, was what we've all been waiting for. The big tobacco lobbyist-funded parties are over, not only in Montana, but all over the country. Any state in the country that has a master settlement agreement will soon have a restraining order to cease all lobbying from big tobacco. In addition, any state that has passed a registry bill or has one in the works is also in violation of the MSA terms and will soon have a restraining order to stop all action on the registry bills. What about, I'm curious to know what would happen with registry bills already implemented. I'm assuming they would have to, those would be under a restraining order. They couldn't enforce it anymore.
I would assume, if I'm remembering right, Greg was talking about a little bit, and he said that while it still falls in the states, if I'm right, it would still fall into the state, and whether or not the state wanted to continue, but it would be kind of like the marijuana laws now. Right. It's still illegal, but each state would have the right to say yay or nay to it independently, or city or something, you know. Right, but didn't the registry bills sort of preempt any kind of legislation those states were passing that were maybe looking at trying to institute flavor bans and things of that nature, right? They kind of thought the registry bill would quell the need for them to go to that level. Right, I think so. And in which case, if that's it, then I would assume it would go back and say, well, you passed a wrong bill due to wrong information, so therefore, you know, we're going back again. Right. I still think when all this is said and done, I you know, yes, any sort of federal legislation is imposing in and of its own right, because that effectively seems like the most harmful to us, that if the federal government tries to pass some laws regarding vaping, we always look there first, because that's sort of the wolf in the woods, right? You know, we're the little Red Riding Hood, there's the big bad wolf. But I think where we can be hurt the most is at the state level. That's where it seems like they're impeded the least in terms of getting some of these bills over the line, unless you happen to live in the type of state where you have a governor who somehow magically doesn't find these types of bans valid. That there's not many of them. There's not many, right? I mean, Florida being one of them, and a lot of that influence didn't come because Mr. DeSantis was necessarily privy and awake when it came to vaping. No. Nick and his team, Nick Orlando and those people down in Florida and their lobbyist groups did a lot of years of footwork going in and speaking to the legislators and
informing them and educating them. We can only hope that every state has a group of people like that. It costs money, it costs time. There's a lot of dedication to that.
Right.
But I still think that our most immediate threat is at the state level, which is why we emphasize people following through on these calls to action and things that come up from time to time, that we try to combat the best that we can, because while we sit and wait for the yo-yo bullshit of the federal government, because we know anything that happens at the federal level more than likely will take years to pass, to come to pass, implement, all that other stuff. But it just does feel like it's the death nail. If the federal government rules against us, we're kind of SOL.
We're kind of sitting in an interesting, the way I see it is we're sitting in a very interesting part of history where, yes, it used to be where it took a long time, but look at what's happened the last couple of weeks. So depending on who gets this right for the vapors and who is in charge and wants to push it through will be how quickly it can be pushed through, which is very unique in our time.
Right.
It's never been like that. So I'm still keeping my fingers crossed. This could be done, in my opinion, in 6 months or 8 months or something.
Sure. Yeah, no, I agree. I think we're kind of in this weird gray space of federal government regulation where we're kind of in that sort of transitional period where we've got sort of like the older kind of embedded lifer kind of senators that are just somewhat old school in their way of thinking. They're kind of narrow-minded in terms of the entire subject, and so yes, you've got the much older crowd, which more than likely is going to be against any of this sort of thing. You've got sort of that middle, that mid. I'll use the catch term mid. You've kind of got that mid-grade age range where they're on the edge of being considered old, but they're not quite there just yet. But they're still kind of mixed bag of stuff going on. I think that they kind of play to their lobbyists and constituents. I think where the biggest shift will come. I mean, what's important is to save it now and keep it available for the foreseeable future in some amalgam. But I think it will be probably the younger group that comes up behind that, like in the next 8 to 10 years, maybe a little, and probably more so as time goes by, where they see it through a different lens, I guess is the point I'm trying to make. I just kind of feel like we're in that space where it's difficult to get through to some of these people because they just kind of attach themselves to either old world values or
they are old.
or a lack of looking at a lack of being able to see the bigger picture with regard to progressive THR. I think there's a lot of intelligent people, and that's the thing is they're just blind. They don't really they just all they really see is you're trading one addiction for another. And my only reference is going to be people that we already fund to say the things that I want to hear, right? They throw out everything else. If the other 3-letter agencies say it's bad, then it's got to be bad. But I won't tell you that I had any influence in making sure that they say those things are bad.
Right. That's it too.
Exactly. So who's to say what's going to become of this? I hope it's as bright as it sounds. I think we are all still sort of waiting with bated breath with regard to the Supreme Court ruling. I don't think we've gotten an answer on that one yet. So, I mean, at least if it had, I'm sure there would have been a lot of discussion surrounding it by now. So I think we're in a holding pattern with a lot of things that are potentially good for vaping. And all we can do is hope and pray that they go our direction. This one seems like maybe it has a little bit more merit to the argument. I think there was a lot of mixed emotions with the Supreme Court hearing, like what we heard and what was said and how the judges were responding and the questions that they were asking and sort of the tenor that they had during the line of questioning. Um, but one thing is for sure is that no matter what comes out of all of that, is that we know the truth, and we will continue to persevere and not go back to smoking because things get limited. This is where the community being close knit, I think, matters the most, because
Right.
we're going to have to pull on our own resources should things go completely south. What is that? What did Squidly have to say? He said the government loves making money off addiction. When Ohio legalized weed, it made like $1 million in like a month. Yeah. Well, but that's the thing is, I maybe you guys can comment on this thought process. But why is it? I mean, we get it, right? I mean, it's staring us in the face is that there's a lot of states who stand to make a lot of money off of the MSA. Right. And so therefore they don't want to see the success of vaping because that eats into the debt that they already have. Right. Because they've already sold the farm on the bonds that they took out to do whatever it is they are doing with that money. And in hopes that that money coming in from the MSA helps them pay that debt down so that they can go and take out more bonds to do more stuff. So, yeah, that's the obvious answer. But you would think that if the government could find a way to get their grimy mitts on the revenue that would come in from vaping, why wouldn't they want to be in promotion of it? If it meant a different type or secondary MSA, I think the challenge that you have there is that there's nothing that they can prove to substantiate an MSA. They can't. There's nothing to stand on. There's
Right.
There's no proof that it. Yeah, no proof that it kills anybody, causes cancer, makes you sick, leaves you in the hospital.
Only health, like COPD and Parkinson's and all your neurodivergencies and all of that is all health wise. There's nothing that's going to tell them that, oh well, we can get an MSA because there's this line of bad health.
Yep.
It does. There's nothing there. So I mean, as of now, there's nothing.
I think Robert, you make the most prominent statement overall, and that is that it is our choice, and they should get out of our life. Like really, I think ultimately that's sort of what we're saying is that we want less government intervention into the choices that we've personally made. If should vaping be this dramatic, harmful poor health decision that I've made, I would then have to live with my own consequences, even against your argument that, well, if I harm myself, I put a burden on the medical system, on the health system, because of my poor choices. But at this point, there's not a whole lot of evidence to substantiate your argument. Like you got to be able to back that up. I mean, you got to prove that people who've been vaping for well over a decade at this point, and really, if you notice, it's kind of comical. I say that lightheartedly. It's kind of comical that the articles that you see about how horrible vaping is and the damage that it does seems to come from people who've only been vaping in like the last couple of years. There are all these sort of new people to the spectrum. And then of course they obscure the verb vaping, right? They don't really,
Right.
they
don't
make
tell you what's in it.
yeah, exactly. Right. So they never comment to that element of it. They just these sensationalized articles, which, can we even put any faith into the fact that these are even true? I mean, from the get go, like, how do we even know that this person really exists and they really experienced this thing and all of that? I'm not saying that, that publications outright lie or push fault fake stories, but it happens. It happens. So, but with all of that said, I'm just saying that they don't have a leg to really stand on. So, less government, unless government truly needs to intervene, right? Like if this becomes some gross pandemic that that is wiping people off the map, in the hundreds of thousands, and like we need to outlaw this thing, but it's just sort of frustrating. Why wouldn't they want to take a stance where they're like, well, hey, look how much money this thing brings in. This is $1 billion industry right now,
Right.
Let's find a way to put our hands in the cookie jar. And I think they tried. I think some states have tried, in the sense, not from the federal side as much, but from the state side, with them increasing the taxes, like vape taxes and things of that, like almost pushing them to the point of absurdity. But regard, I mean, but that's really what the state's trying to do. Like, okay, fine, you can have whatever it is you want. We're going to inconveniently tax you and make you pay a lot more for it. But for us, it means money. I think we have to find a balance there. I think that approach is wrong, because now you're defeating THR, right? Now you're making the thing that helps people quit smoking more expensive than the thing that was killing them in the first place. So it's a bit disappointing that they take the approaches that they do. But I truly think that, if they could find a way to be able to return money to the states,
right,
to do almost effectively what they do with the master settlement agreement as it stands now, why not take that approach? Why not figure out a way to do the same thing?
I say tax the hell out of Bloomberg with all the, have him pay for all the health care that cigarettes have made, have come about. I know he can afford it.
Oh, absolutely.
Him and Gates, and several others.
Yeah, see right there, $764 million California got in 2024. And what did California do with it? They didn't do the shit that they're supposed to do.
No.
That money coming in, at least chunks of it, portions of it, are supposed to go towards anti-smoking campaigns and helping people to quit smoking and this, that, and the other, and you see, we pulled up charts before, maps of the U.S. where it shows exactly how much of the MSA money that those states have made actually goes towards the pursuance of trying to help people quit smoking. And if you made vaping accessible to those people instead of villainizing it, on the kids' backs, then you probably would find success. Because if the agenda is to remove the burden from the health industry, which is privatized to begin with, it's not a public health system. So that's where big pharma comes into play, right? And it's big pharma that needs the doctors and the hospitals and the cancer patients and all of that stuff, in order to keep themselves relevant. So, it's just sort of disappointing. I feel like there could be wins on both sides of the fence here if we could find a way to meet somewhere in the center of all of this. Don't make it so expensive that, we're already arguing about the price of eggs right now.
I know.
But, I bought some, so I'm not going to promote a product here, but, to talk a little bit more about, this lull, I'll call it my lull period where I turned to disposables for a while. But one of my arguments, and something that I've remained conscious about throughout all of this, is that, you get to be an observer kind of knowing what you know and coming where you come from, and the things we talk about, sustainability. We talk about innovation. We talk about um, 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 uh, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, I don't want to use the term litter, but biodegradability, and and harming the environment with batteries and all this other stuff. And so it was a bit of guilt for me, like entering into the disposable market, like seeing all this stuff that's available, everything from devices that have like apps on it and stuff that play music, that have fancy light, like I'm looking at disposables. I've owned some. I bought some, where it's like these screens are out of control. The last ones that I had were AI. Okay. To what degree it was truly AI, I didn't really test the theory on it, but apparently the one that I purchased had a what was called an AI mode. And so somehow it would understand your vaping kind of behavior, and it would adjust to it accordingly, which I don't know how it would do that if I'm already determined on what I like. But what it did have
It was mimicking what you did your last 10 vapes or something.
Somehow there was I think they just disguised some cheap some cheap floozy feature and called it AI, and we'll buy into it. What I did like about that disposable, despite the screens and all the crazy stuff going on, was that it was the first disposable that I found that had a variable setting. Now, and I'm not talking about just like the ability to make it more restricted, like a restricted DTL or a true MTL. I mean, because that's how these disposables work. They go, oh, it's 40,000 puffs. Well, yeah, if you're doing it in MTL mode and you're just doing tight little puffs and stuff like that, it'll last you longer. But what if I want to go to a DTL? Okay, great. You give me a button or something. But this particular disposable allowed me to set the nicotine amount as well as the ice level or the menthol level that was in it. So I could talk to it, and you would go, hey, iJoy, Nick 30, and then it would set the nicotine release at 30. I don't know how they regulated it inside the device intelligently, but it would go anywhere from 30 to 50. So you could, and I thought that was good because that's one thing you can't find much anymore is disposables that offer lower nicotine contents.
You're right, right.
And so they're all 50s. Like when you go look anywhere, they're all 50 milligram. So I like that element of it. But I go back to the other kind of guilt element that kind of entered into it was the conversations that we have all the time about, how we're, throwing all these batteries away and it's not good for the environment and all that stuff. And so you stay conscious of that thought because in the rebuildable market, you're buying, 18650s or whatever you're buying, whatever batteries you happen to work with. Yes, you have safer ways to dispose of those. They're reusable for quite a long period of time. You're not really entering those elements into the environment on a regular basis. But with disposables, at some point, you got to throw these things in the trash.
But now they've got a lot of those, like in the UK. There's like, I want to say there's 7 different companies. There maybe more now. I don't know. But they're actually breaking them down and reusing stuff. And it can be done.
Yes. Recycling.
Recycling. So if we can do that here, why not start that up here? But nobody's willing to take that first step,
Right. And this is where an entrepreneur could play very beneficial to the whole entire scope of everything. But I'll let me carry on. But because I went to the vape shop the other day. Like we were getting ready to go downtown. I was kind of running out of my materials and stuff, and I'm like, I've just been sort of like hesitant because I'm like, yeah, I'll go back to my rebuildables. So I was just trying to get rid of all the disposables that kind of linger around, because when you get down to like 5% remaining, you're like, and you put it on the shelf because you're like, I don't want to go out with that one, because if it dies on me while I'm out, you know, I don't want to be stuck without something. So you open up a brand new one, you take that one with you, and then it's a cascade effect, right? Now, before you know it, you got 4 or 5 or 6 of them that are all at like 5%. So I was like basically just trying to get rid of all the 5%ers that existed on my shelf, and get those down to where I was back to my just straight bottled juice and stuff.
Right.
And so I'm like, we were taking a trip. My wife and I wanted to get out of the house, so we decided to go down to Oakland Cemetery downtown in Atlanta. Really cool cemetery.
Been there.
Yeah, a lot of history involved in that place.
Yeah.
Kenny Rogers is buried there. I didn't know that. Yeah. I actually sang a bar of "You got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them."
Did you? Good for you.
At his gravesite. So anyway, it's one of the more majestic, newer looking ones in the whole graveyard, but nonetheless. Anyway, so I'm like, hey, to my wife, I'm like, hey, can we stop at the vape shop so I can pick up a couple disposables before we go? And she's like, yeah, okay. So we went over to the vape shop, and I walked in. And of course, when I immediately walked into the vape shop, and I'm not a big vape shop person to begin with, like I don't dread them, but I don't really care to want to be in them all the time. I'll support them, you know, I'll buy their products. I'm not going to bitch about the overhead and all that the markups and all that stuff. I mean, they have to survive like any other business. Mm-hmm. So I walked in the door, and of course I started immediately looking for, Squidly, it was kind of weird. I felt weird talking to my vape. You know what I mean? That I just kind of had this conscience, like you almost have to go around the corner and be quiet about it, you know, like, hey, hi, Joy. Ice 3. Okay, we're good. You know what I mean? I just felt weird talking to it, and to boot, that was the only way you could make the adjustments on the device. It wasn't like
there wasn't a button you could do.
Yeah, you didn't have an alternative. You know, to be like, okay, I'm not talking to my vape, I'll just hit the button. There was no decision making. It was like you either talk to the vape or you didn't get in. Nothing changed. Or you could go to AI mode and hope and pray for the best. But anyway, so we went into the vape shop, and of course I started looking immediately for the thing that I had before, which was this iJoy thing that I had been vaping on, which I enjoyed. I enjoyed the device. No, it was a 40,000 puff thing, whatever. And I asked the guy behind the counter, I'm like, hey, do you have the iJoy, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, nah, man, I don't have that. I mean, mind you, I'm standing in front of like a wall of disposables. Like, I mean, the sea was effectively endless. So I know vaping is certainly not dead, just looking, at least here in Georgia. And he's like, no, man, I don't have that. And I'm like, okay, all right, no big deal. I'm sure I can get something. I've tried several of them. I'm like, yeah, I see you got a bunch of Kato bar stuff. He's like, yeah, I got plenty of the Kato bar. I got this Kato bar model and this Kato bar model and this. And I said, well, I'm looking for something in the realm of 30 to 40,000 puffs. You know, I'm not too particular, you know, just something that's kind of up there in the ranks so they last me a while. He's like, well, hey, I got this one that's kind of cool. And so this is where, and I'm not going to share names and all that other stuff. I guess I could tell you who makes it. It's by a company called Fogger, but with only one G, not two Gs. Right. Fogger. Fogger. And he's like, yeah, you might want to check out this one. These are 30,000 puffs. And he's like, but these ones are kind of different in the sense that you're not stuck with the whole entire device. Like, you know, you just get the device, you vape it till it's done, and then you throw it away. And I'm like, he's like, this one's a little bit different, and I'll show it from a distance. But I mean, this kind of what it looks like any other one. But here's the cool part. So the pod is magnetic, right? So first, Aaron, there's no branding on here. So, and for the first time with a disposable, you could see your juice level. Like all the other ones, you can't see it. Right. It's like you just have to trust what they say is inside. But now you can see exactly where your juice level is.
That's cool.
In these particular tanks. And the fact that once you're done with this, you just throw away the Nick pod and it's over. then you get to keep the battery, and then you just buy more of these. You just buy whatever flavors you like, and it just magnetizes to itself.
I got a question for you though. Have you dropped it? And if you have dropped it, do they bounce apart and break?
I have not dropped it yet. I've been
Okay.
pretty good about not dropping it. I mean, given what I paid for at the vape shop for it, I was like, I don't know that I would openly test that theory to see exactly. It seems very strong. I would tell you, just based on what's happening right here. There's a magnet at the top and a magnet at the bottom. Hold on 1 second. Hold on. Oh, hold on, everybody. I got to come to the rescue. This is one of those mail jobs, like, hey, can you open this jar of pickles? That's kind of what it was. It's a screw off bottle of wine. There you go. All right, we're good to go.
Give him some. He's coughing.
Yeah, exactly. I got my water and my coffee here, so I'm pretty good.
Oh, okay.
But I would tell you, there's a magnet at the bottom, and there's two magnets. So it's not just one sort of centralized magnet.
And it looks heavy. I mean, it looks like it's a good one.
You can shake it. You can do whatever you want. I mean, that pod is not coming off.
I've seen them, but I haven't ever touched them and played with them or anything, so I wasn't sure.
Now, and it does have, like, you guys can see that it has a switch on the bottom for if you want like true MTL, or you want a kind of a restricted DTL. That's there. For obvious reasons, if you go to the DTL side, you're going to burn up the tank a little bit faster. I just like the idea. And then the only thing you have to argue with yourself over is the dreaded vapor, or the dreaded vapor component of, are you into matchy, or are you not into matchy? Because if you go buy other flavors, the tanks aren't all going to be the same color as your battery.
Right.
So at least they kind of made them all these sort of like soft, kind of pastel-y sort of colors. So they all kind of work together, even if your battery doesn't do that. So I started questioning the guy. I'm like, oh, that's really cool. Yeah, let me check that one out. And I'm like, I never really kind of liked the element of the disposable market, that where it lends to, having to throw all these batteries away and stuff, because I just sort of feel like I'm contributing to the problem. I'm like, I asked him outright. I'm like, have you ever tried to start up any kind of, I'm like, do you currently recycle, or do you have a recycling program at your vape shop here? And he's like, yeah, man, I wanted to do that. I've looked into it. I thought about trying to get it started. He said, but the challenge that I have is, he said, even if I had a program here to recycle the batteries, he said, it's very difficult to find companies or places to dispose them at.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that stymied him from even starting a program, because if he collects them all, it's very difficult for him. There's no one around that will take them and dispose of them, whether he pays to have them disposed or just is able to drop them off. That avenue is not there. Hold on 1 second. We have an update, folks. Give me 1 second as I read this. See, he's basically saying he's not coming. So John was simply apologizing that he he went to bed, and then his brother finally showed up and woke him up.
We need his brother's number.
and he's speaking in past tense as he closed the paragraph with hope you had a good show. I message him right now and go, actually, John, we're having a good show. You're in the present. You could join if you'd like. Anyway, we'll see John next week. But yeah, so he was stymied by his inability to be able to go anywhere. And I said, what about like Batteries Plus or places like that? Wouldn't they recycle the batteries? Right. Well, Peggy, I might ask him about that next time I have to go in there. Unfortunately, I just bought some more of the pods online because they were $5 cheaper per pod to buy them online. So no shade to the vape shops of the world. I got more for my money than going into the vape shop and buying a couple for the same amount of money. So at any rate, I digress. But if I go back in there, and this guy was the shop owner, he was not just one of the workers. I would mention that to him, because I tried to tell him. I said, hey, yeah, I'm like I'm part of a vape advocacy group. We do a live show every Wednesday night. We talk to people from all elements of the industry, from vape shop owners to advocates to you name it. We've talked to
Anybody.
anybody and everybody that has a voice that they can use. But that said, yeah, so that was a little disappointing, because I was waiting for his response to be, yeah, man, I really wanted to get one going. I just don't really know how to promote it, or how to really sort of make it available. And to me, what I'm thinking is, even if he had the moxie to try to figure out how to incorporate that into his business, to me, if people would be willing to use that type of thing, because you do have to get off your ass and go to the vape store to return your batteries. I'm just thinking to myself, that might equal more customers for him, or more business inside the door, if he could, offer some kind of a points back system for turning in your batteries, like, get, 10 points per battery or something like that. And have that add up to shop points where you could spend it on other things.
There's a place here in my town, and because I live on a beach, and we have all the tourists, he sets little pails, little silver pails by his door. Mm-hmm. And it's an open door thing. So he has a little stack of pails. And if you go out and pick up a pail full of trash, whether it has a can in it or not, and bring in your used vape, then he'll take it.
Right.
And you get 10% off of your next purchase, which is, if you turn one over, then you're going to get another one, So it works out really good for him, because the beaches get clean, and he gets the 10%, and then he takes all the vapes and he'll break them down in his back room.
Oh, okay.
He understands how to do it.
Well, right. And I think
he throws away the plastic. I mean, gets the plastic guy to come get the plastic, and, so whatever he can't get recycled, then he, pitches it. But
right. But you can see, just based on some of the comments that are coming up, that the recycle programs are a bit of a challenge. Right. That's why I think if more, and I'm not saying Fogger is empirically unique, or because once you get on to once certain companies get on to certain technology, and that's the other thing too, is they minimized a lot of the where to for on the screen. It's basically, here's your battery level, here's your puff counter. It gives you a second counter for each puff that you do, and a little bit of a light show with regard to the battery stuff. So I like the fact that they thought more about practicality than they bothered with all the bullshit that goes into the board and the fancy lights and all that other crap that doesn't really help anybody. I mean, it wouldn't matter to me if it was just it had a simple LED screen that just showed me the more important information. But I think if more companies could go to a model like this and transition away from those self-contained kind of things, then maybe you could kickstart that whole idea that, recycling might matter. I mean, think about it. I mean, if you could get, like, you could, I mean, granted, you'd want all the returns coming back to you if you offered some kind of an incentive program. But what if an entire strip mall with a vape shop in it, right? Because the vape shop kind of has the stigma, right? The vape shop is like, the vape shop at the end, they attract nothing. Yeah, they attract nothing but a bunch of miscreant, flat bill, bearded guys that like strawberry. We don't get it. Yeah, exactly. It's gotta be a bad place to go. It's that damn vaping again. But I'm like, what if you could take an entire strip mall and get them involved in the recycling program, right? Because vapors are everywhere, right? Exactly. I've found packaging down by my mailboxes. I've seen cast off at the pool. They're not supposed to be vaping at the pool. That's HOA standard. No smoking or vaping at the pool.
Yeah.
Even though I vape. what if you got the whole strip mall in on the act, right? And you sit there and you go and you do like the little pail trick, okay? And you go, okay, look, as the community bad guy at the end of the strip mall, we're the vape shop. We want to install like a robust recycling program because we want to protect our environment. We want to do a good. We want to show the community that we do have concern for the environment and that we're not this big bad hedron, a triple-headed dragon, that's out to just take everybody and kill everybody. We're not. Right. So what if we were to come to your business and we could distribute a pail in front of everybody's store, or a box for that matter, right. Some kind of a battery disposable, disposed box, and we could all kind of take part in it and say, for example, the incentive would be $1 per battery. Okay. And meaning that if, however, I don't know how you could make it work, but have that store, have that store incentivize people to come to their shop too. Right. So like, let's say it's a small little boutique, or it's a record store, or it's, a Hallmark.
I used to work for McDonald's a long time ago, and I would distribute all kinds of coupons and all this kind of stuff. And like for YMCA, we used to buy like the big, I don't know, I think there were 8 gallons, like what you'd see in the football game. The guys getting, they always topple them over for the Gatorade. Yeah. So we would buy it, put a McDonald's thing on it, and then give it to them. So it would help send business. It would help them because they wouldn't have to buy it, and then it would send business to my McDonald's. And it worked out really good. I mean, It really did, because we were helping the other companies, and in return, they would send people back to us. So they would hand out our coupons, and we would hand out their coupons, and it really worked out good because we had like a coupon wall, and you could, if you were going to go to 579 or Keds or all these other little shops that was in the immediate area, they could grab a coupon from them, from us, to go there. And then once they get over there, they can say, hey, I can get a Big Mac or whatever it was that we sold. And because I never ate there ever. Yeah. But, it worked both ways. So it kept business local.
Well, right. And that, I mean, I think that's what I'm kind of leaning towards is that you could help sustain that strip mall. I mean, I don't know how much corporate America would buy into it, but I'm like, think about like outlet mall areas. I mean, I don't really ever see too many vape shops in outlet store areas. I've probably seen one or two, maybe there's a couple in the perimeter, but like outlet malls are endless. I mean, there's hundreds of stores. And if you could find a way to incentivize the people to recycle the batteries or to recycle the devices, they could pick the store of their choice. Like maybe they don't really care so much about the discount at the vape shop, but they want those new Air Jordan 5s that came out, and they could, toss in 5 or 6, batteries and walk in the store and get a $6 coupon, so that they could apply it towards the purchase of their new, Air 5s or whatever. Like, I don't care about shoes. I'm not a sneakerhead, but with that said, I'm just saying there's got to be a way where you could, and then could you imagine the kind of, like, that might actually even draw some press. Do you know what I mean? Like, hey, look what this outlet mall is doing. I mean, here, it's easy for us to get on the news and talk about how vaping, disposables are destroying the environment. But here we've developed this program for the whole entire strip mall where any business can participate. They can all have their own recyclable bin. We'll take care. As the vape shop, we'll do the legwork. Like, we'll come around and collect them all, and we'll do all the dirty work. All you really have to do is just be the mechanism for people to be incentivized to recycle their batteries. Right. And then, from there, then, you can figure stuff out. So, I mean, I'm just saying that we have to be innovative in some ways.
Outside the box.
Yeah, exactly. Like, but I think that's one thing that maybe the public doesn't get to see sometimes is that, we are in general concerned, but yeah, but like and Steve, I know that those Tesla batteries, those electric car batteries, they're just an array of 18650s pretty much. Good Lord, if the vape shop had a recycle program for 18650s and I could find a spare Tesla battery laying around somewhere,
Hey, yeah, I've heard of people doing that, or for their e-bikes. I've heard of people putting them into like their CPAP masks.
Yep.
And running them, batteries instead of plugging in the wall. And I've heard of people doing stuff, all kinds of stuff with 18650s.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I'm just saying there's a way where we could convey the message if we could show people that we're not what they think we are and that we're a lot more knowledgeable than they assume we aren't. That they would, it would play in. I think it would put vaping into a bit better of a mark. 'Cause I think the other thing that they overlook too, I think a lot of people overlook the people that are anti-vaping, and I'm not talking about the anti-vaping advocates, the loudmouths in the room. I'm talking about the people who just don't know any better and just kind of see it as a bad thing. But it like understand, like get to see us in a different light and understand that we know a lot more about what we're talking about than you think. Yeah, we're just not these one-dimensional knobs who are trading one addiction for another. I mean, we acknowledge that that nicotine does have an addictive element to it, but on the danger Will Robinson level, nicotine is not as dangerous as they paint it out to be. And then B, we all share the same sentiment that we don't want the kids vaping either. Like that, like we don't aspire to set up the situation to make it successful for kids. That's not what we're trying to do. Can we stop kids from getting their hands on it? No. Just the same as you can't stop them from getting cigarettes, you can't stop them from getting alcohol, you can't stop them from getting opioids or drugs.
We stop them from driving. That's my argument. We stop them from driving. Now, occasionally you're going to get the kid who steals a car, who steals their parents, they don't have a license, that kind of stuff. But let's face it, we don't let our kids drive until they're of age and are legal to drive, most of us.
Right.
And that's because the parents make sure of that. They know that if a policeman pulls them over and they're driving illegally, they're going to get, possibly a ticket. When a policeman pulls them over and they have a vape, what happens? Nothing.
Right.
I mean, half the time they're allowed to take their vape with them with just a scolding.
That'll do it, Steve. Yeah, G Money, welcome to the show. Yeah, Vape Wild, didn't they go out of business? Didn't they kind of shut their doors? I thought they were done. Wasn't Vape Wild the one that had like the most expensive e-liquid or whatever it was? They had like this e-liquid that was like stupid expensive, and they did a video like showing them like taste testing it or something like that. I can't remember what the vape e-liquid cost at this point in time now. I think it was something. It was like maybe it was like a couple $100 or something like that. But it was like they were like it tasted like bacon or something like that. I can't remember what it was. Yeah, it was some premium e-liquid. I can't remember what it was. But Steve, to your point, that'll stop them from driving. Bring back stick shift. Like no one, like that's the thing.
That's what I learned on.
Yeah, James, it had Goldie. It was something. It was some extravagant e-liquid that was like some dumb expensive thing. I think it was more of a gimmick. There it is. It had gold flake in it, and it cost $1,500. Yeah, it was something. Yeah, I just remember it was like something completely insane, and they did a taste test with it, and one of the guys said it tasted like bacon or something like that. I can't really remember. Yeah, well, there was a lot of places like that. What was that one place that used to exist? G Money. There was it was something Mountain Vapors, Blue Mountain Vapors, or something Mountain.
Rocky Mountain.
Something. Maybe it was something. I just know that like you could go there and you could basically like
Mallory would know.
Yeah, almost create like your own e-liquid. Like you could get,
Oh.
they had all different strengths, all different nicotine levels. You could get flavor shots. You could do all kinds of stuff with it. I think it was. I feel like it was like Blue Mountain. It was blue, or it was. Somebody will remember what we're talking about. Mount Baker. That's it. Yep. There you go.
That's
G-Money.
it. Mount Baker Vapor. That's it.
Yep. I used them quite a bit. I overdid it. I overdid it with the flavor shots. I didn't understand them at first. And I thought, oh, I bought some stuff from them before, and it wasn't that strong. It wasn't that flavorful. So I like ended up having them throw like 4 or 5 flavor shots in there. And then I got it, and it was just like, oh my god, now it's just way too strong. But they were cheap too. Like you could get volume for very cheap there because they were doing all of the mixing themselves. That was still around the time when you had Darkest Day Vapors, and you had like all the what was the cheap vape juice, like Cheap Dicks or something like that, or Dick's E-Liquid or something like that. You had all these. We kind of jokingly refer back to them as like the bathtub e-liquid makers and stuff like that. But like had plenty of those. But yeah, that's the thing we were just talking about, G-Money, not that long ago, is that with the way things have kind of gone with legislation and tax laws and all these other things, that they've kind of removed that component of it. It's providing people a cheap, effective way to quit smoking, and now it's on many places on par with the expenditure of smoking, and in some cases probably more expensive than smoking. So yeah, there you go, James. He's still wearing a Mount Baker t-shirt. Yeah, Mount Pocono Vapor. There was the Vape Dojo. There was Minuteman e-liquid. I that was one of my favorites growing up. You had God, I can't remember. I think it was something like Joe's or something like that. I was with the first banana bread that I ever bought. There was and then some of them still hung around. There was Bumblebee. Remember Bumblebee Vapor? They were out of Virginia. They were my answer to the overpriced Five Ponds. What was the one I really liked from Five Ponds? Not the liquor flavored ones, but there was one that was like a banana custard, peanut butter banana custard. The name's it's escaping me right now. But yeah, those were like the good old days, like when we had all those options and availability to get all that great stuff. Well, anyway, so now since we're on the subject of disposables, this I think was the original article that I think John wanted to talk about tonight, based on the title of the show, which was Vapes Now Subject to a 35% Tariff. So I thought we'd talk about that. We'd bring that up since we're on the subject. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, because it comes from everywhere else. So let me share this one. We'll talk a little bit about this, and if anybody has any opinions on it at the end of all of this. I don't think it's a really long article. Present, share screen. This one right here. All right, I'll try to make it a little bit bigger for everybody. Dun, 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 dun. It's at 100%. We'll take it up. There. Can everybody see better now? Are all of our aging eyes? So Chinese vape tariff hits 35% as U.S.-China trade war escalates. The tariff wars are affecting our vapes now. Effectively, as of February 4th, which was about 8 days ago, the United States imposed a new 10% tariff on a wide range of products imported from China, including the majority of vaping devices used by American consumers. This additional levy, the first punitive measures taken by the second Trump administration, comes on top of an existing 25% tariff that has been in place since 2018. So 10% more. The combined 35% tax applies to all Chinese-made electronic nicotine delivery systems, such as mods, batteries, pod-based devices, and disposable vapes. So this is not just disposables. This is all the stuff that everybody gets. So even more incentive to be made in America, right? But we all know why a lot of the manufacturers went over to China, because manufacturing costs were very low. They could import stuff pretty cheaply. So they had the vehicle and the mechanism to provide that for everybody. These combined 35% tax applies, or the combined 35% tax applies to all Chinese-made electronic. I already read that. Classified under Section 301 of the Harmonized Tariff Schedule of the United States. And then now China is retaliating. And so in response to the U.S. action, but we don't send any vapes over there, I'm pretty sure. China swiftly implemented retaliatory tariffs on key American exports, including 50% on coal and natural gas and 10% on crude oil, farm machinery, and certain automobiles, blah, 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 blah. So tariffs burden, well, yeah, that's just sort of like what they say. In some cases it will, some cases it won't. But here's where the rubber meets the road. So the potential impact on vape prices. The immediate effect of the new 10% tariff on vape prices may be muted, as manufacturers, importers, and wholesalers could absorb some of the cost depending on the product profit margins. Chinese parts suppliers may also temporarily lower prices to help manufacturers maintain profitability. However, if the U.S.-China trade war continues to escalate and additional tariffs are imposed, consumers are likely to feel a more significant impact. I can't think currently at one in the current framework that we're in. I don't think anybody's felt any really true impact from any of the tariffs up to this point. And inflation, as inflation persists, the cumulative effect on tariffs on Chinese vape products could lead to notable price increases for American vapors. While the industry has demonstrated resilience in the face of past economic challenges, the ongoing trade tensions and regulatory uncertainty pose significant risks to businesses and consumers alike. Agree. I mean, it could have an impact. I mean, we already feel it in our pocket to begin with. If to feel more. But what's the general consensus on? I mean, whether things get more expensive, whether tariffs cause the inflation of prices. If your avenue is to go buy stuff from vape outlets, because I mean, let's face it. I mean, costs online would go up, as well as at the brick and mortar. At least the response I've seen, and I'm using Australia as a metric for that, and I know that they have their vape challenges. But I'm talking about cigarettes. Like over in Australia, they taxed cigarettes to ungodly levels. Like when I went over there, I was spending close to 30 Aussie dollars for a pack of cigarettes over there. And people still bought cigarettes. Like people still went and got their cigarettes. Is the consensus that if the vape costs went up as a result of tariffs and things of that nature, you'd still go buy it? I think people would still go buy it. I don't think people would stop buying it because of that. We wouldn't be happy about it, but we would still find a way to fit it into our budget.
And even if you went back to cigarettes, you'd pay more, and we know what cigarettes do. So I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. I mean, we're not going to want to pay it, but we will.
No, I think the people that it would affect moreover would be people that are sort of like, people that are kind of, they haven't been in the game long enough. They maybe just recently picked up vaping. They're kind of wrestling with the idea. I mean, maybe it's still not quite working to what they wanted it to be because of limited options and choices. They don't know enough about the vape market yet to where they know there's other alternatives out there, like open systems that they could variate, that might work better for them, or whatever the case might be. I think those people would be the high risk customers to potentially go back to smoking, because then I think if it pushed vaping to the point where it started to outweigh the cost of just smoking, I think those people would be more inclined to fall backwards in time than to stay persistent. Well, I think we're all more or less locked in. You know what I mean? Like we know it's the one way or the highway kind of outcome, right? Yeah, it was like, I'm just curious on if the public perceives it as a price increase, even if it's already cheaper, but we were also willing to pay more for smokes. There's Paul's in here. They are now at $50 a pack here. Yeah, dude. It is kind of crazy. Like the only solace that I had in Australia is there were like some sideways street vendor dudes that I somehow stumbled onto, and they were like, "Hey man, come over here. I'll give them to you for
I
about
got them for you.
10 bucks cheaper and
Yeah.
stuff like that." So I mean, where there's a will, there's a way. But yeah, it's just I just think that if tariffs impacted the cost of vapes in America, people who have been vaping for a long time are committed to vaping as their alternative to smoking. I think those people, without question, would begrudgingly find a way to pay more for it. But I think the people that are kind of somewhere in that gray space between teetering one way or another, and if every dollar matters at that point, I think they're going to go cheaper, and they would probably find a way backwards. Policymakers must carefully consider the unintended consequences of tariffs and work towards a resolution that balances national economic interests with the needs of American businesses and consumers. As the vaping industry continues to evolve, it will be crucial to monitor the impact of trade policies and advocate for fair and reasonable treatment of this innovative and rapidly growing sector. So my final argument to any of this would be, yeah, like if you could maybe take a different stance on vaping, and you want to throw the tariff argument out there that imposing tariffs on foreign countries on their products coming into America that could potentially raise the cost for American consumers, and part of that incentive is to manufacture in America to keep the cost down. Maybe if you could look at vaping a little bit differently and you gave people a reason to manufacture within the United States, then everybody gets their back scratched, right?
Right.
The government gets their business taxes, the vapors get their e-liquids and their products by being able to buy American made. It's not too hard to replicate what the Chinese are doing. And at this current point in time, we're limited on the products that can be used because of the PMTA, right? So not only so many e-liquids are permitted to exist and stuff like that. So I think what I'm saying is that I feel like there's a light at the end of the tunnel if they would just see it for what it was, instead of causing some of the mass arrest that currently exists. So at any rate, yeah, that's that 35% tariff on e-liquids. Let me stop sharing the screen. Bum 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 bum. All right, let's go here. It says Squidly said, "I've always preferred to make cigs as a bag of tobacco." Wait, let me read that again. "I've always preferred to make cigs as a bag of tobacco is $10 and tubes are $2, so you get a carton for less than 2 packs." That's true. That's a good way to math rationalize. Exactly.
That would incentivize a lot of people.
Right. I mean, I think there's a lot of resolutions that exist. I'm curious. I don't even know anymore. $4,380 buying cigarettes versus $400 buying a few vape. Yeah, well, right. I mean, but that's really sort of like that's the way that it was. You know what I mean? That like when like that was the one thing that we lauded about it was like, hey, I mean, think about the amount of money that you have to shell out annually just to smoke. You could turn to this and you could do by way of comparison on your finances at the end of the year, and you would see that you save a shitload of money and it's better for you.
Right. And you don't have near the doctor's bills and all the prescriptions that you need and you don't get missed time from work and the whole bit because you're sick all the time.
Exactly. So I mean, there's lots of benefits to be gained from all this, and goes to really substantiate why we continue to do what we do and advocate for vaping, because we know that it's going to take a village, right? I mean, we can't do it on our own.
I like that. Yes.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I think that we have to trust in that time is on our side, at least still for the time being. We have a lot of good people and a lot of good legal spots to sort of help things out. I think it's just about persistence, and staying true to the conceptual and reality, the conceptual idea that, the reality is that vaping is better. It's going to save a lot of lives. It was created with for all the right reasons, and we just have to, kind of get through, a lot of the BS smoke screen that's going on, and just stay consistent and persistent. I think things will turn out good for us eventually in the end. Hold on, what was that one comment there? I pay more for 120 ml bottle of 6 milligram juice than tobacco, but I prefer the vape. Yep, exactly. And I say that too. I'm like, it's weird how, like, now you go somewhere and like, I'm not like hating on anybody, but like if I'm standing out front or you go somewhere and somebody lights up a cigarette and you smell it, you're almost like, you get that turned off kind of expression, like, yeah. Like I don't miss that at all. I kind of laugh. We were leaving the Kroger today after we went grocery shopping, and I'm like, the last thing you see on the way out of the check stand is the wall of cigarettes, the case thing, and I'm like, I think every time the scene plays over in my head, I'm like, I'm so glad I no longer have to ask the cashier or the attendant to go get me some cigarettes out of the case. Like I'm just so, there's a big personal success with all of that. So yeah,
I always felt so intimidated, not because obviously I was old enough, but it was everybody around you was like, look at that, that's just horrible. I mean, she's over there buying cigarettes. I hated that. I hated that feeling, I hated it.
Well, right. I think, that if you parse it out, James, I think really if you sort of do the math, in the end, I think collectively we are spending far less. Because if you think about it, like I even had to ask, I'm like, how much is a pack of cigarettes in the state of Georgia anymore? Like, I don't even know. Like, I can't even tell you the last time I actually looked. I think Georgia's somewhere in the realm of around $8 plus, somewhere in that neck of the woods. And you think about that on a per pack level, I was a pack a day smoker. So if I was still smoking a pack a day now, and let's just do general math. Let's just round up to $10. Okay. With, and I did a pack a day for 7 days. That's $70 a week. I just spent $70 online and that's including the shipping. The actual product cost was only about $53 for the pods that I bought for that fogger system. And it's $12 in shipping, which I'm sure they embed the signature fee and all of that stuff, the legalities of it. Now, do they actually come to my door and ask for my signature? Hell no. The postal kid, whoever it is, puts it right there in my mailbox, and everybody goes on in their life. So I spent $70 for that, and if you do the math on that, like one of these pods will easily last me multiple days. Based on my vaping habits, which can be variable at times. But yeah, so I mean, really, you are still spending less money than if you were smoking. But I do think that it's worthy to speak to the idea that they are trying to find more ways to make it more expensive, which puts new vapors in jeopardy and also sort of defeats the point of harm reduction. The harm reduction means and ways should always be more financially accessible and effective. And we already know it's effective.
Right.
So
absolutely.
Yeah, the Slim 120. Yeah, it's like I kind of had the first sort of like sticker shock years ago in my old company. I had to take trips to New York and stuff, and I was out of cigarettes when I got there, and I had to go. We went to the grocery store on the way to work one morning, and I walked up to the cashier and I'm like, "Yeah, can I have a pack of Cools or whatever I was smoking at that time?" And she goes, "That'll be $10 and something," and I went, I just said one pack." She goes, "That is one pack." I mean, this was years ago. So, yeah, I mean, it's crazy to think the amount of money people spend on that. But, people will spend it. They're just going to spend it. If you like smoking or addicted to smoking, it plays a part in your life.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, people are gonna drop the coin.
It's my medicine, period. That's what it is. I mean, I could quit. I fully believe I could quit and no problem. I mean, I may want it, I may think about it, but it's nothing that I would have to have. But it's that hand to mouth, it's the calming effect, all of that. It's my meds. I don't need meds because of it. So it's important to me, that I get access to it at a comfortable price.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, if I had to look at it, from a high level, I would say, you know, it's it certainly is a stress reliever for me.
Yeah, yeah,
It helps me kind of cope with those frustrating moments or those busy moments. I feel like it helps me focus a little bit more and stay on task.
right.
I can't fault it at all. And I take exception to the idea that it brings on depression and all the like. No,
No,
in fact, it does exactly the opposite of that. And then I'm also keenly aware of exactly what I'm putting into my system, and I don't abuse it. Like I'm not like the kids on YouTube that took like 10 joules and stuck them in a styrofoam cup and hyperventilate just to try to get a buzz. That's not what I'm going for. But there's reassurance in that. I know that I'm not putting all the horrible shit into my system that
correct.
went hand in hand with smoking. And my wife is a former smoker. She quit smoking years and years and years ago. She's
Good
not a
for her.
vapor. She didn't use vaping to transition. As a matter of fact, she's from Brazil, where vaping is legal. You're not even supposed to have it, but it's readily available everywhere. Um, but she never did it, and so she doesn't necessarily 100% agree with it, and I don't fault her for that, but she does compliment the idea that some of them smell good. Like, she doesn't complain about
Good,
that.
good.
um but she's also very happy that I'm not a smoker and
Right.
smelling like an ashtray, and our clothes stink and the car stinks and all that other stuff. So I mean, there are some wins there, in the sense, but she doesn't give me a hard time about it either. So there's a general understanding that it's something that I use, whereas people find other crutches. Some people like to drink to calm down, or go exercise to calm down, or whatever. I mean,
Play
I'm
a
not
video
saying,
game or
yeah,
whatever. Yeah.
I mean, and I'm not saying some of those are inherently bad for your system. But I remember the runner Jim Fix. Like he was like this runner that invented the first like iteration of like the yogurt and granola combinations, and he was like a super duper health nut, and he was a marathon runner, like like a decathlon athlete and all this other stuff, and then he died of a heart attack running or something like that. So
Ooh.
I'm saying it doesn't matter what it is. There's inherently some risk in everything, unless you just wrap yourself in bubble wrap and lay in the middle of the room where there's no furniture and don't move for the rest of your life. I think you'll probably not be. Well, I don't know. Maybe bubble wrap can.
Your time's still coming, though. I
Yeah,
mean,
you
you can't stop it. So,
get toxic shock from all the bubble wrap wrapped around you, to keep you safe. Uh, but with that said, I mean, we're all still on the journey. We're all here for all the right reasons, and we're all still fighting the good fight, and hoping that things like this lawsuit that came out, starts a bit of a steamroll, and helps keep us there for a lot longer. So with that said, I think we've kind of gotten to the end of the show here, Shelly. I just wanted to say, apologize. John couldn't make it and entertain all of you wonderful people, but I hope that Shelly and I fit the bill uh, well enough, that you'll have us back again for another week of this jibber jabber. And we thank each and every one of you, like literally.
absolutely.
Thanks to
Absolutely.
some of the new people that come on the show.
Yeah.
I'm thrilled that you guys stop in and have the conversation with us. I
Yeah.
know at times it might seem like we're speaking in our own bubble, and maybe there's some truth to that. But we put the show out there with the hopes that we keep the conversation going. We keep the spirit alive. That the pursuit of advocacy and standing up for everything that we stand up for will cause us to win in the end. Yeah, absolutely. Well, Microwave, you really didn't get extra minutes tonight. We're just Shelly and I are truing up the delay that was right. So we started the show 15 minutes late. We're at rock until 15 minutes after the hour just to true up on the 2 hours. But anyway, the point is that, you know, we're really happy. All the newcomers are here. We're thrilled that we have such a great family of long timers that have been here with us on the show for each and every episode. And so thank you so much to you guys. It really is a community and a family. So with that said, we'll be back next week, hopefully with an awake John Truncali, and we will see all of you wonderful people at that time. So thank you, and cross your fingers and pray for me as I try to find the outro. I'll figure it out. Okay, I think if I just hit, I think if I just do.
You did good, Tim.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, I'm just gonna play a freaking video, enjoy it, and then I'll hit end stream. Maybe if I just do it like that. Anyway, we'll see what happens. I'm gonna hit one button and hope it works out. All right, everybody. Peace. Thank you. Look in the camera, Shelly. Say good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.